I made it to Canada. I successfully crossed the border, and here I am in my new home in Toronto. While the experience of crossing the border is still fresh in my mind, I wanted to go over what it was like because I was not ready for what was in store for my kiddo and me when we crossed the border on Tuesday night in the wee hours of the morning. We crossed at the Ambassador Bridge, which connects Detroit to Prince Edward. Is that right? Anyway, it's the busiest border crossing in North America, and I didn't really want to use this border crossing. I actually intended to go to a border crossing a little farther north. Google Maps rerouted me, and I wasn't paying attention, and I ended up in Detroit. So that's where we crossed. And it went like this. The first stop on your way through Canadian immigration is a booth that looks a lot like a toll booth. Border agent asks you a series of questions, why you're visiting Canada, how long you plan to stay, etc., etc. And then this agent fills out a yellow slip of paper, hands it to you, and then instructs you to pull your car into the vehicle inspection area. So I did that, and a whole team of border agents came out to inspect the car, and it was pretty thorough. We were asked to step outside the car and stand in front of it in between the headlights while the team went through the things inside of our car. The agent who was the lead of the team asked me a lot of the same questions that the agent at the booth had asked, and I was doing my best to answer all of these questions as truthfully and as substantively as I possibly could. But part of the problem is that I don't know all of the details and intricacies that went into our applications, the program that we're immigrating on, or really any of the jargon that's used by border agents. And as the questions continued, I started to get the vibe that these border agents maybe were not going to let us across. The next thing that happened was the lead border agent went through my wallet that was in my bag and found my Missouri medical marijuana card, which he presented to me and said, am I going to find cannabis in your vehicle? Because even though cannabis is legal where you're coming from in the US, in our case, Michigan, and it is fully recreationally legal in Canada, you cannot cross the border with cannabis or any cannabis products. And I knew that in advance. And so I didn't have anything. And so I said, no, you're not going to find cannabis. And he was like, They looked, but they didn't find any because there wasn't any. When the team was finished with the search, the lead agent came back to me and my kiddo and asked us if we had any plans for accommodations on the U.S. side that night. He said something about, oh, that's an awfully long drive from Missouri to here. And I was like, yeah, we've been driving all day since this morning. And he said, well, I think probably you're going to get turned back. And so you'll probably need to figure out some accommodation. And at this point, I was like, okay. It dawned on me that I hadn't said whatever it is that I needed to say to trigger the chain of events that got these border agents to realize that I'm the spouse of a highly skilled worker and this is the child of a highly skilled worker. I guess they were just seeing me and my kiddo as two people with a car full of stuff crossing the border into Canada and telling everybody that we plan on staying forever. And you can't just do that. You can't just go to Canada because you want to live there. That wasn't the end, though. There's actually one more step. And so this border agent who had taken the yellow slip of paper and put some of his own markings on it, then handed it back to me and asked me and my kiddo to walk inside the immigration office. Once we got inside, it wasn't busy at all. We were assigned a border agent immediately, and that border agent asked for all of our paperwork, which I provided. The law firm that we were working with put together these packets for my kiddo and me, and these packets contained copies of our applications, copies of our passport, a marriage license, a birth certificate, and some other supporting documentation to prove that indeed we are who we say we are. This border agent then asked me for my original marriage license, which I happened to bring with me. He also asked for my kiddo's original birth certificate, which I also brought with me. Then he asked for a printed copy of Lori's passport, which I didn't have, but I had digitally. And then he was like, never mind, I can look it up. So this guy, he kind of took a deep breath, squared up the papers and said, I need to make a phone call. If y'all can have a seat right here, I'll be back with you as soon as I can. We sat in those seats for about an hour. And side note, a funny thing about the immigration office, the seats are turned away from the counter. And something about that seems weird to me. At the DMV, for example, all of the chairs are facing the counter so that the people who work there can get your attention and say, come on over. In the immigration office, it's like, don't look at us, look away. And I don't really know why it's set up that way, but we sat in those chairs for like an hour facing away from the border agents. A couple of times our assigned border agent piped up and shouted, Patrick, which by the way is my dead name, but that's what I had to use when I was crossing the border. Patrick, what's your spouse's maiden name? And other questions like that. After this very long phone call, we were called back up to the desk, and here's what was explained to us. The alphanumeric code on Lori's work visa, for whatever reason, was not recognized by anyone at immigration. And so this border agent had to call his superior, and they had to figure out what type of program we were immigrating on. And as soon as they got that worked out, everybody was like super, super nice, because all of a sudden we weren't people just like trying to get into Canada out of nowhere. We were people participating in a program, already had applications in process. And really, this step was supposed to be more about issuing us paperwork than it was about running the gauntlet of tasks and questions related to immigration at the border of Canada. It all worked out in the end because we were given the visas that we came there for, wished luck, and sent on our way. We continued the drive from the border all the way here to Toronto, and in the wee little hours of the morning, got to see our new home for the first time. And so here we are. Me and the kiddo were in Toronto. Lori's actually still back in Missouri right now, wrapping up the loose ends of an international move. She'll be here soon. Our stuff will be here in another few weeks, probably. And in the meantime, we're getting to know the neighbors in the neighborhood. And I got to tell you already, the vibe here is so welcoming. Yes, Canadians are really mad at America right now, but I don't get the sense that they're mad at Americans. And those people whom we've talked to who find out why we came here have been especially kind and welcoming. Yesterday was a cold and rainy day, and I ordered a hot bowl of pho from a local Vietnamese restaurant, and oh my God, it was good. I'm pretty excited about the food here in Toronto, but not quite as excited as I am for the human rights. If you know the city of Toronto and there's something that I definitely need to go check out, drop me a comment. I'll see you in the next one.